So we're going to talk about team building, and the way we're going to do it is we're specifically going to talk about the way I do it. And we're going to talk about how we compensate our people. We're going to talk about our expansion model. We're going to talk about the different types of individuals. We're going to talk about our lead gen model and our standards for our team. All of that's going to be included. So this is really a look into our business. And that's why so much of the content will say the Ben Kinney team on it, because these are actual documents and slides and materials that we use for our actual real estate business. Give you guys an idea of a business if you aren't really familiar with it. Last year we operated in 19 different cities. We did over $18 million in gross commission income and $700 and something million in sales. What somebody said to me is they said, you've grown so fast. Other than my weight, that is actually not true. What happened is we spent the first 12 years operating within an hour and a half of where I live. And it was only 3 years ago that we went to our very first location out of the state. And we went to Austin, Texas, and we did that because I found a person. And we tested that for almost a full year. And once we felt like our model could work in a state as weird as Texas, right, then we'd try a couple other places. So we tried a couple other places, and then you start growing. But last year we only added 2 locations. And here's the reason. We are not chasing awards, recognition, units, volume, number of locations. We are purely chasing profitability to build wealth for my people and our families. Does that make sense? And that's what I care about. Is our model scalable? Can we make a margin to do what we want? And we do that to build wealth. And wealth for me, that means doing what you want, with who you want, when you want. Does that make sense? And when I read Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Agent book in 2004, we should probably yell at them, but they got more people. Thanks, Bob. When I read Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, here's what it told me. It said, we must incrementally, step by step, remove ourselves in a Michael Jackson moonwalk sort of way.
Impressive.
From every aspect of the transaction, based first on its equivalent hourly wage. We must incrementally remove ourselves from every aspect of the transaction based first on its equivalent hourly wage. Meaning we give up the thing that we could pay the least for first. And then we give up the next thing, and the last thing we give up is the thing that pays the most. Does that make sense? And what that taught me was, this is about not being an agent, this is about owning a business. And that's why I left my glamorous job as a cable guy and joined Keller Williams, because I read Gary's book, and in that book it said I could own a business. I didn't even think growing up that I could ever own a house, because my family didn't own a house. But then I get through and I realized that I could actually own a business. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So why do we want to build a team? It's that we want a business. And why do we want a business? We want a business so that we don't wake up in 20 or 30 years and we realize that our business still requires us to show up 6 days, 7 days, 10, 12 hours a day, because we owe it to our family and our loved ones and our dreams and those signs to not do that. The moment that you hire one person is the moment that you decide that your business has to have an unlimited size. Now here's why. Putting a limit on the size of your business, once it's not just you, is the most selfish thing you could ever do. Because you're basically saying, hey, Julie, you and I, we should work together, right? But I don't want to get super big, so I'm going to limit your income for the rest of your life, right? And you can send your kids to like a mediocre school, right? And you can get a nice mediocre house and get a boat long as it's mediocre or small, right? And you just put all these limits, right? And then Julie does exactly that. She says, I'm out of here. And people often say, I left because I didn't see it was a path to get the opportunity that I want. right?
One of the reasons that he has such talented people around him, like we have really talented people around us, is we all see a path to like big lives. And we can't have big lives unless Ben has a really, really massive life, because there's a lot of us in his circle, right? So, I mean, he's constantly having to expand his life, because if he stops, he caps me out. Then I have to make a decision, right? Then he loses talent.
Yeah. So what you say is, I'm going to allow my business to be as big as my people need it to be. And as you get more and more people, what we realized was if we don't open up additional locations, I have no place for my top people to go in the event they want to stop being a listing agent or a buyer's agent. Does that make sense? So we had to find other opportunities. And when people leave when people lose people from their team, a lot of times they sit back and they say, Carla wasn't loyal. She's disloyal, right? And they put it on her, but the truth was we weren't doing this reciprocity around helping Carla accomplish her goals through us also accomplishing ours. So wealth is the ability to do what we want, when we want, with who we want, because we want to move through these boxes. And if you guys have read the cash flow quadrants, you know what these boxes are. But the vast majority of the population, they exist in the E box. The E box. E box says you have a job. E box means employed. And you know that you're employed because you wake up every single day, Vicky, and you say, I do it, right? But we want to move out of that. And very few percentage of the population actually does that. Some of them are lucky enough to move to the SE box. The SE is self-employed, right? And then there, Vicky, what it says is we do that. And you're sharing responsibilities, and you're doing what you enjoy, so on. But it still requires you. And on the left-hand side of this piece, what happens is if something happens to you, you get sick, you get cancer, something happens, you want to take some time off, retire, whatever it is, your business stops growing. Your business stops growing. And I've seen that time and time again with top agents that make a lot of money, but the business was all around them, and they wake up one day with a kid that has cancer or a spouse or whatever, and they realize that when they took that year off, all their business went away, right? And we don't want to be in that position. So we want to move from SE to B, and B means business. Business says they do it. They do it. And if you took some time away from that business, you would know that you were in the B box, because that business would not only maintain, but it could grow.
Like when Ben goes hunting, Brivity keeps right on chugging along, right? And he disappears in the woods for 2 weeks, and he has a satellite phone that he turns on every now and then, but mostly he's off the map.
Yeah, unless you're vegetarian, and then I'm gardening in the woods with a rifle. So we're in this B box, and what's the purpose of a business?
Profit.
Profit. A lot of people say, I'm here about customer service. That's great. That's great. I love that you love your customers, but love your family first. Love your retirement first, right? Love your faith first. First and foremost, we're doing this to make a profit so that we can do what we want, with who we want, when we want. Because we want to move down to the money box, and the money box says, my money does it. My money does it. That's where you can make investments in different things and still get paid. And write this down if you're writing notes down, if you're not, just move your hands a lot. Right? I want to move from having income to having assets. And one of the first biggest assets you could have is the value of your business. And we value businesses by a multiplication, a multiple of profit. Meaning if your business is not profitable, it has no value. Unless you own a tech company, which I don't recommend either. We want to get to the point where we're moving through these boxes, and then at some point in your career, whenever that might be, you're going to say, I'm going to give up the I thing. I'm going to give up the I thing because I want to work a little bit less. And then the next thing you give up is the we things, the things that you work with people on. And the last thing you do, right, is you get rid of your business, you sell it to your kids, you run it into the ground, right? You sell it, you close it, whatever it is, right? And then the very last thing, we hope when all this hard work is all said and done, we're left with some money. And we just hope that our money lasts as long as we live, because that would be an awkward gap, wouldn't it? Yeah. So how do we do it? How do we move from being an I to a we to a they? Like I said, we must incrementally remove ourselves from every aspect of the transaction. So let me tell you a story. In 2004, I get my real estate license. I'm not super good at it. In 2005, I'm getting the hang of it a little bit, and I'm able to sell about 25 transactions. At that point right there, the broker's calling me and saying, hey, I have a check for you, but no green sheet. If you're at Keller Williams, you know what that means, and you might have gotten that call before. My sellers were calling me and saying, hey, you put us on in my yard, you listed paperwork, I never heard back from you. Right? And I'm finding buyers that were written on napkins and half-done things because I'm just not good at 80% of the activities in real estate. So I saved up enough money, and I think it's about 25 transactions in most markets that I could go and I could hire an admin, and she's sitting in the back there, and now she runs one of the largest real estate companies in the world, Jolene. And Jolene, I went to her and I said, Jolene, I have about 3 months of salary set aside to pay you. And at the end of those 3 months, if we're not making more money than we are now, then we're going to have to part ways. And she said, okay, with some conditions, because Jillian always puts conditions on me. Conditions are, well, that's fine, but in the first 3 months, we can only do things that make money then. Like, you got to make the calls and knock the doors and do the opens. And I said, well, you can't organize or make system. You're just going to help me do that. So that's what we did. And we did that, and we went from 25 transactions to 84 transactions. What that told me is I was good at going out there and knocking the walls down, but I needed that person standing behind me to keep me going and keep me supported and free my time to do that thing. Then what we did is we said there's no leverage in buyers. The problem with buyers is you can work with 4 to 8 buyers at a time, but you could work with 40 or 50 or 100 listings at a time. So we went and we hired a buyer's agent. When we hired that buyer's agent, our business went from 80-some transactions to 143. And at that point, I got what a lot of agents were affected with the last couple of years. I call it the genius disease. Anybody ever else gotten the genius disease? That's where you think you're super smart, but it turns out you don't know crap. That was me, see? I said, if I can do 143 transactions with a buyer's agent and an admin, what would happen if I got a bunch of them? And I went around the office and I found every agent I could, like the guy that was smoking outside the whole time, right? And I found the lady that worked on her listing presentation for the last 11 years, even though she's never been on one. I found the guy that works on websites all day but doesn't sell. I call it the cream of the crap. I found the best of the worst agents in my town. And we took our team and we skyrocketed up to 11 agents, me, right, Jolene, and these agents. And then a year later, we celebrated our victories because our business grew from 143 transactions to 153. 10 more agents, 10 more deals. But here's the problem, is I spent all my time helping those agents do their deals or trying to do some deals, right? I was trying to make a duck fly like an eagle, and it just doesn't work. I was putting a lot of pressure on holding unaccountable people accountable, right? And I woke up broke, unhappy, frustrated, and the number one thing I'd say to myself is I'm not a good leader. Anybody else ever considered themselves a bad leader, right? Here's the fact for you. Nobody's an amazing leader of marginal people. And I don't mean that as an insult. It just means people in the right role don't need to be held accountable. People in the right role make you look like a genius, right? And I had to go back and say, things got to change. We did things like in the beginning, giving agents one split for their sphere and a different split for the leads we gave them, which means whenever they had a sphere deal, they would work on those and not the ones that I gave them, right? And then there's always this big negotiation between what's a sphere? Well, that's my sphere. Well, where'd you get them? Well, Carla gave it to me. Well, where'd you get Carla? Carla was the lead you gave me. That's your sphere? And there was always this big battle and debate, so I had to sit everybody down, and I said, there's a new way we're going to run this business. Every morning at 8:30, we're going to come to scripts and dialogues. It's required, because they were obviously saying the wrong things, right? Every day, we're going to make a certain amount of dials on the phone. Right? Every week we're going to do a certain amount of open houses. Here's the new compensation plan. And by the way, in front of you is a folder. And inside this folder, is all your contracts. And if you don't like it today, you get to walk away. We'll high five. You just tear it up. And here's your new agreement. Who wants to go and who wants to stay? Everybody that day stayed. Everybody that day agreed to the new standards. They weren't necessarily the ones that lasted, but they all gave it a try. And my fear was when I walked in there and I tried to change, that they were going to leave me. But here was the reality. They weren't making the amount of money that they wanted either, right? They weren't being successful either. And they actually wanted that accountability, and they wanted that change, and they wanted that training, and they wanted the additional value that we could provide by investing more into the business.
150 dials a day, 2 open houses every week, 63 touches on your sphere a year. What else?
Yeah,
Scripts and dialogues at 8:30 every morning.
Yeah, it wasn't rocket science. It was simple. And I think that's one of the beauties of our businesses, and you guys will see this a lot, is I simplify everything. We tend to complicate things to justify our inaction. Think about that, guys. We complicate things to justify our inaction. Well, I'm going to do this, but first I need that. We create spreadsheets for days, right? We create org charts that are gigantic, right? We talk about our 10 and our 20-year visions and what we're going to do, but we don't ever do the one-year thing because we get frozen in the fact that we don't know what's next. So one of the tricks of our businesses is make everything explainable with one page. If you can explain it with one page and a Sharpie, you're winning. You're winning. So here's how I think the organizational model could work for a real estate agent. You need to be selling one to two homes per month. And if you do that, you get to do on our team what we call stay. You know what I mean? If you can't do 1 to 2 a month, you probably shouldn't stay. You should probably go get the job at the Best Buys, right? Go be a title rep. Go do something like that. But once you can get to 3 to 4 transactions, right, you're ramping up, you're getting that, you're going to have a hard time managing those tasks and managing that business. You need to bring in an admin. Somebody that can take that 80% off and allow you to go plug back in. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to know that you made a good hire when after 90 days, you have no drama. After 90 days, your business is increasing. And there's 2 things that could happen if that's not happening. Number 1, you made a bad hire. Or number 2, you confused leverage with luxury. When you handed off all that extra tasks and all those extra things,
You went hunting.
yeah, you didn't do crap, right? When you create leverage, the goal is to move that stuff off and replace it with something that has a higher per dollar productivity. And maybe you can split it to say, I'm going to work a little bit less, but I'm also going to take that replaced time and do something that brings in more business, more listings, more buyers, whatever that might be. Now, once you get your admin in place, the first thing you're going to give up is your buyers. And we already said why you give up buyers, but it's better for you to run your listing business. And then when you're done with that, you're going to bring in more buyers, agents. You might bring in more showing agents because you can still manage a ton of listings, and most likely you don't have that much listing leads anyway. You don't need a listing agent if you're not doing probably 200, 250 deals a year. Because if you want to be in that business, you can probably still manage that. Maybe at 10 deals a month, you bring in another marketing manager, another admin, or an inside salesperson. What you want to do is you want to build your business with pressure until that pressure, right, creates diamonds or things start to break. What you don't want to do is you don't want to create a business built around this idea that there's flexibility and opportunity to grow. You'll see brokerages all the time that do that. They go get a bunch of space because someday the agents are going to come and then the market shifts and they go broke. Same thing can happen in a real estate team. If you staff up too much, all those admin and all those people, they fill the time with stuff, but it's not the most important stuff. So then when business actually picks up, they all look around and say, we're capped, we can't do any more. And it's because 80% of the things they're doing are actually unimportant. But when you compress it, when you say this is all that's available in my business, that's the only person I'm going to have, that person has to make choices every day. What do they work on? And you have to make choices as well. In Washington State, we probably did, 1,200 transactions last year with a single marketing manager and a single pending manager, and they have some VAs that back them up. I met with an agent the other day that I think had 6 or 7 admin, right? And they aren't doing 100 transactions. That's a problem. The problem is because it affects our profitability, right? And people don't have the pressure to focus on what's first and what's most important.
Ben, I had an interesting conversation earlier with a lady, and I'm just used to your model. But in the MREA, it actually says you would hire a second admin before you hire a buyer or a showing agent. Why do you go this way?
Well, it is what the MREA says, and that's why I put the parentheses around the S.
Okay.
But Jillian was good. I didn't need a second one. She could manage it. She did it through systems, right? What I needed to get the buyers off my plate because I hated sitting in open houses, and I didn't like driving around with people and their little bratty children. I needed to go out and do my listing pres, get the listing paperwork, come back, hand it to Jolene, and I needed to get those people with somebody that enjoyed working with buyers. I just had no passion around that.
He's available for babysitting, by the way. He babysits my kids. They love him. He's Uncle Ben. But
Bob walks up with a kid, and I just spray it with a Windex. Get that thing away from me. I don't know what's going on here. So at the very end, what we're looking to do is we get to the point where we say, hey, the business is doing good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace myself, and you're going to put somebody in charge. Here's what you want to do. You don't want to be in a position where you have to hire a leader. That leader should be a lead listing agent, a lead admin, right, or a lead buyer's agent. Because then they grew up with you, and you're promoting people instead of placing people. The leader of all our companies came as an admin, right? It could come from anywhere. But when you decide that you're going to be about promotion instead of placement, you ask yourself the question when you hire them, is this person a future leader of my company or not? And you might change who you're hiring, right? Is every person that you hire promotable? Is every person that you hire promotable? So then you get down to this point where you say, hey, I'm going to hire a CEO and I'm going to have a little bit more leverage in my life. And with that leverage, you have a decision. Are you going to work on your golf game or your tennis game? Are you going to take more vacation? Maybe you just love and are passionate about working real estate, and you can start working on expansion and doing this in different locations. Or maybe you want to coach and teach and give back to people. Maybe you want to do nonprofit. Maybe you want to invest in market centers. Maybe you want to become a MAPS coach. Well, whatever that might be. I think that those things are things that we earn the right to do by having a business that can sustain us. What you don't want to do is you don't want to start getting through this process and you wake up one day and you say, this crap is hard and this stuff is boring. And instead of pushing through the boredom, we go and we switch to something else, right? And they leave whatever they do and they quit. And then sometime later, like, this sucks too, so then they go back to the next thing. And then over time, that sucks too. Gary Keller said it to me once. He said, well, when all these CEOs were interviewed, they were asked, why do most people not get to where you guys have gotten? And the guy said, it's not complicated, but it's freaking hard, and it's boring, right? Are you willing to push through the boredom to get the life that you've always dreamed of? Because what we do is not always sexy every single day. That makes sense? And you just got to be okay with that's what happens.
That concept's everywhere in your business, right? It's not just you as the leader. Like your agents have to understand that when our agents make 150 dials, it's boring, it's long, it's hard, right? But then I get, Ben knows that if he makes 52 dials, he's going to get, an appointment, right? Or whatever his numbers are. But that's everywhere in your business. It's not just for you.
So let's talk about the end of this thing. I was with Gary once, and Gary said, Ben, do you think that if I handed you the phone book, that you could go through the Austin phone book and find somebody that would list their house with you today? And I've cold called a lot of people in my life, and I have no problem with that. And I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I could go get a listing today if you hand me the phone book. And he said, well, how much money would you make with that? And I was like, I don't know what home prices are here. This is quite a while ago. And I said, $7,500, I guess. I pay some expenses, $5,000. He said, that's $5,000 for a day's work. He said, is that a lot of money? And I said, yeah, I never found $5,000 in my garbage can, right? And he said, well, that's the problem. I said, what's the problem? He said agents believe that that's a lot of money. And because that, they stay in the job. And I said, well, what's my choice? He said, what if you went through the phone book today and you called every single person looking for one person that was willing to go through the phone book every single day to find a listing? And you hired that one person, what would that one person bring to your business? I don't know, 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand, 500 grand, right? And he said, in one day's work? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, which one's a bigger number? I'm not super bright, but I could do that math, right? And that's when I understood that the real role of the CEO, once you get there, and I haven't ever fully given up that role, is my job's to go out there and find talent. And it's still prospecting, it's still LinkedIn messages, still Facebook messages, still texting people, it's still having conversations, it's still doing all those things. We just moved from prospecting for buyers and sellers into prospecting for talent. Make sense? And when you're prospecting for this talent, what happens is we fall into this mistake of thinking that one person is enough candidates. How many people have taken career visioning? Okay, here's what I think about it, because I love teaching CV. It's if you have one candidate, you spend the entire process trying to prove to yourself that that is the right person. When you have 3 candidates, all of which you would hire today, you spend the entire process proving which is the best person. Make sense? So when somebody comes and they say, hey, we'd like to hire this person, I'll say, great, show me their CV package. Great, show me the ones that you decided not to. And if they don't come back with enough people, go find 2 other ones that you think would be perfect to hire, and I'll interview all 3, and we'll choose that person together, right? You got to have a bigger pool. So how do you compensate these people? When you're an individual agent, you get to make 100% of your GCI, but net a very small amount. And I get people that come up to me all the time and they say, you know, I thought about joining a team, but I'm not willing to work on a 50-50. And I said, sweet, I understand that. Would it be okay if we did some math? And they said, yeah. Well, what did you pay your brokerage? Well, I paid 30% and then 6% in royalty. 36%, that's great. Did you have a coach or training? Yeah, that was probably $1,000 a month. Okay, that's another 12% of $100,000. Great, did you buy any signs or websites or tools? Did you buy any leads from Zillow or somewhere else, right? Did you do any marketing? Did you pay for any other MLS fees? Did you pay for your... I added it all up. I said, you're on an 80-20. You're getting 20 and you're paying 82 expenses. If you worked for me on the 50-50 and I covered all expenses, you would actually get a massive raise. And at that point, you realize that percentages don't matter. It's the denominator that does. What you have to be able to prove to people is that if they work the same amount of hours with you this year as they did last year, and they made more money, would that be cool? Right? And anybody with any brains is going to say, yeah, that works. That works. So then you go and you hire an admin, and your compensation model is you get 100% of your commission, but now you got to pay the salary of that person, right? Whatever that might be. And then you go and you hire your first piece of a sales leverage. The buyer's agents on our team, you might want to write this down, they're on a 50-50 split. And here's why. That's what Gary and Jay said to do in the book. So I just took that and then I wrote it in my contract. Because I don't want to complicate things. If they said that's what to do, I just wrote it down. And what's funny is I never changed it. It's just there. Now, that's for any lead generated by them or any lead generated by me for them. The difference is, if we take the time to convert those leads or nurture those leads, I give them to them at an appointment split. And the appointment split says we get 65% if it's a buyer, they get 35%. The appointment split for a seller, we get 70%, they get 30%. And the reason is that creates a gap that allows us to pay for inside sales or outside sales, or for us taking our own time and energy and effort, or us giving up our own sphere, for them just to go meet with somebody that says, yeah, come out and talk to me. I would like to talk about listing my house on Saturday. Yeah, I would love to go look at some properties on Sunday.
Just as a maybe a functional aspect inside of there, all of the agents on the team, as long as you've communicated with a lead in the last 2 weeks, it's your lead, and the ISAs will stay away from it. If it gets further than 2 weeks, you haven't communicated them, the ISAs may go in and set an appointment for you. So it forces the agents to make sure, if they want to kind of keep the potential for a 50% split on that person, they got to be in communication with them.
And then the thing that the agents will tell you is, they'll say one day, well, those are my leads. I'll say, well, who paid for them? Right? We not only have the cost of the leads, but we have the cost of agents not converting them. And I'll get agents even on my own teams, sitting in the back there, they'll come up to me and they say, the agent said the leads are weak. I'm a Glenn Ross fan, so I say, no, do me a favor, just call through those leads yourself. Call through those leads yourself. And then at the end of the day today, tell me what you found. Jacqueline did that, and then Jacqueline goes and then she calls me at the end of the day, I am so pissed off. I went through those leads and I found $1 million buyer meeting me tomorrow. I found 2 listings and I got 2 other buyer appointments. And these are leads that the people said were weak, that they were no good, right? And she said, when I looked at them, they only called them once. They only emailed them once. They never text messaged them. They didn't do any of that stuff. And they go back and they blame the leads being bad. But what we know over time is the average lead takes 12 touches to be converted. And when your person doesn't touch them 12 times, you aren't really going to know how good those leads are. And some of them, that's an average, right? So some of them might be 24. Some of them might be 36. So the last percentage in there is the showing agent. So we compensate showing agents at 15%. So maybe you aren't quite ready to have a buyer's agent, but you want to get buyers off of your table. So hire a showing agent. Showing agent would work for 15% of the total GCI. And some people are saying, whoa, I don't know if somebody would work for 15%. Once again, that's a percentage. Don't think about that. Their job is to show buyers, go to inspections, go to appraisals, help you with any sort of contract stuff, and help you follow up with your leads. Your job is to convert the appointments, do the buyer consult, negotiate, and get the high five at closing. Now, what a showing agent can do, if an agent's doing 3 or 4 buyer deals a month, a showing agent should help that main agent go up to 6 or 8 deals a month. So a showing agent at $250,000 at a 15% split will make about $54,000 a year. Which means if they're doing 8 deals, they'll make $108,000. That's net, right? Because they don't have expenses. How many people know somebody in your community doing some job, maybe even in real estate, that would like to drive people around, open doors, and make roughly $50,000 to $100,000? Raise your hand. We know somebody? Yeah. Isn't that true? And it's a good life, right? And it's a good pay. And most likely that showing agent will then become your lead buyer's agent, because they've gone through the whole process. They've gone through the whole process. Next is you add some more leverage, and that comes out as salary. Salary is an expense, and you come up with your way to compensate them. Most of our staff is salary only. It's only the executive leaders and admin that get salary plus a bonus. Our inside sales agents, it's very simple. They get $2,000 a month and 10 to 15% of the commission, depending on if it's a buyer or a seller. Now, everybody always asks, well, why do you pay $1,000 a month? Well, it's because it's enough to force them to come to work, but not enough for them to live on. You don't want commissioned people paid enough to live on if they do not sell anything. You end up with the wrong person. You want somebody that says, I don't really care about the salary, I'm coming here to kill it. I want to make a lot more than that, right? You want a hungry individual. Some of our top agents on our team started out as ISAs. The cool thing is that after all those years of calling all those people, they no longer have any fear, right? They've been told no 10,000 times, right? And now they just show up and they know it takes them 52 dials to get a single appointment. Your listing agent, we pay about the same way, a $2,000 salary and 15% of the commission. But remember, all they're really doing is following up with warm listing leads, answering the listing calls for seller leads, following up with home valuation leads, right, and taking ISA appointments. In our team, we call them buyer's agents, but we allow our buyer's agents to take listings and our buyer's agents to work with buyers. We allow our listing agents to work with buyers, but primarily they do listings. When we did that, a couple things happened. One, all of our buyer's agents started getting listings. Prior to that, they never asked anybody if they had a home to sell. They assumed every buyer they worked with was homeless. But what we found is that most people live somewhere. Wouldn't you agree? Right? And they weren't asking that question, and then all of a sudden they're waking up surprised because the person said, yeah, thank you for showing us homes, but we ended up listing our house, and they said that they give us a deal if they helped us buy too. Or they referred us to somebody else, and they just weren't asking. Now a big percentage of our listings come from our own agents bringing in their own business. And the same thing with our listing agents. They eventually find a sphere or a friend that wants to buy, but it ends up being about 80-20. And then the last is your replacement. What you want is you want your replacement compensated on profit share, increases in revenue with some sort of a base salary. In most of our businesses, they get a percentage of profit or an override. The best thing is if your CEO or your expansion partner actually already has a sales business that could be ran by the admin and the showing agents that they hired, so they get to do both. So their compensation for running your organization is on top of the hundreds of thousands they already make in running their, as my partner Tamara would say, her seat on the bus business. So what you do when you're building a big business is you start with your mission, vision, and values. Your mission and vision and values are going to be how you decide who you work with, what you do, and who you attract. We're going to talk and dive into the mission, vision, and values. Every appointment that we sit in where we meet with somebody and when we're looking to either recruit them or interview them into our business, one of the things I make sure that we ask is what are their goals? And when you're recruiting somebody to a sales team, it's really important you ask the question, well, what'd you make last year? And then you go back and then you ask the follow-up question, what did you net from that? Because a lot of times they're going to try to compare their gross to what one of your agents would net. And I have friends in this company that do $4 million a year that don't net 150, 200. Right? So it's a big difference. They would get a big pay raise moving away from a $4 million a year commission into a deal that did 150 or 250. And when I learned that, I realized that way more people were actually recruitable because they actually could increase their income and the splits would actually be irrelevant. Then I asked them the question, well, if that's what you did last year, what's your goal for next year? Because that's how I know if they're going to stay or not. When we go through this is actually slides from our recruiting presentation. So what we're showing you guys today is the actual materials that me and my partners sit down with agents and we go through. We explain the power of a team. These are the different positions in our team. This is what they do, etc. So let's go back to our mission. On the Ben Kinney team, we decided that our mission would be delivering the dream of home ownership. Where?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Because I had in my mind when we made this mission statement that we were going to be working in multiple geographies. I also made it a decision in my mind that home ownership was one of the most important things we could do for our friends, our families, our employees, right? And what we do is truly important. I share it often, but Gary shared it yesterday, that the average renter has a net worth of $5,200, and the average homeowner has a net worth of $238,000. You see the delta, the difference between those two, and how important it is to get our friends and family and employees into home ownership, because that net worth will determine their ability to retire, their ability to take care of themselves, the medical emergencies, take advantage of opportunities, all those things, right? And home ownership is the path to that. Home ownership is the path of that. We preach it every year. We give out awards to every person in our company that bought a home or an investment property in the last year. And it's the Dream of Home Ownership Award. And they all get these glass trophies because it's so important. The vision of our company was simple. Vision is different than mission, because mission is an external statement. The mission statement says something to your customers. The mission statement is for your customers. What you do, where you do it, right? The vision statement's an internal statement. The vision statement is what attracts talent, keeps talent, retains talent to your organization. So we decided, and we modified it last month to make our vision statement win, make, give, and do good. By delivering on our mission, our vision statement will become inevitable. As we win in business, we make more money, we give generously, and we do good in the communities that we serve. Specifically, when we sit down with a recruit, our vision is to win, which means we want to hire winners. People that want to be in first place, not second, right? We want to hire people that want to make millions. Because if they don't make millions, they can't do the last part, which is give millions. And we decide that we would go into business with somebody because if they made a lot of money, they would do great things with it, right? What would you do if you had an extra $1 million? What would you do with it? And if it was a Lamborghini, a boat, those sort of things, that's probably not our person.
You bought a jet, didn't you?
What's that?
You bought a jet. I saw the jet on the
somebody
video.
started a rumor that we bought a jet because I put a logo on a white plane on a video the other day, but no,
we don't own a jet. Right.
I fly regular.
Dang.
Right. Okay. So that's the vision. So when you sit down and we're talking to somebody, I go to Carla, are you a winner? Do you like to be first or do you like to be second? First. That's awesome. Let me ask you a question. Would you be interested in becoming a millionaire? You would. And if you had those millions, would you do something good with it? Could you imagine if you're making $1 million every year that over a period of time you would give millions back to your community, to your family, to your friends, right? That's my type of person right there. And it helps you decide, who do you get into business with? What does that look like? The next one is our values. Values help make our decisions. We said the success of our businesses will be determined by our ability to maintain our health. And our health will be hard work, which means we only want to hire people that want to work hard. We only want to hire people that want to work hard. Now, hard work isn't about lots of hours. We believe in extraordinary results comes from systems. We want people that want to follow our systems, and from that they'll get extraordinary results. And that's really what our business and our expansion business is. It's a collection of systems that, if done correctly, we've proven can help any real estate team get profits between 25 and 35% and double, triple their business consistently. And we've proven that in all these different markets. But it's a system. How many people watched the Ray Kroc movie on Netflix? Let me remember what it was called. Founder. Who watched that? So Ray Kroc, he comes into this organization. Well, the original founders of McDonald's had sold some franchises, and these people that bought the franchises, they're all mad, and they're saying, this business doesn't work, you lied to me. And Ray Kroc, he goes out there and he goes into those doors and he opens those doors and he's like me, he's like smelling for a cheeseburger. And he freaking smells tacos. And he is ticked off. They're selling tacos at the cheeseburger place. right? And then they're making that the McDonald's problem. They wanted the logo, but they didn't want the models and systems. And we get caught in that all the time. We decide to be creative instead of purposeful. Creative is what entrepreneurs are. I don't like the word entrepreneurs because what percentage of entrepreneurs fail?
98%, I think.
98%. How many people want to raise their hand and say, I want to sign up for that gig? Where's that gig? Where do I go where 98% of all people fail? Where's that one? I'm in. Put me on that one. We don't want that, do we? We want to be into the plate where 90% succeed. That's what I like about the Keller Williams franchise. Last year, 100% of the market centers were profitable, or 99 point something percent. That's way different than being an entrepreneur, right? That's what I like about the real estate team model. If you're not creative, it's a profitable model if you follow the budget model, and you follow the org chart, and you do those things. Okay, keep going. Then what we do is we figured out who we need and how we need to pay them. Now we got to go hire those people. So where do we find them? The thing that somebody will say to me, James, not James, but somebody like James, we're going to pretend that it's not you, but somebody like you so I can talk to somebody. They come and they say, you know what my problem is? My problem is I can't find a good admin, right? And then the next person over there, Carla, she comes up and she says, you know what my problem is? I can't find a good buyer's agent, right? And then Jeffrey, they come over there and they say, you know what my problem is? Right? There's no talent around here. All the agents here, none of the agents here are motivated, right? And they make that their excuse, and they make that the reason they're not successful, but it's not. The reason that they are not successful is that they didn't decide to make that problem the only thing they worked on until they solved it. Carla's problem would be, I didn't spend every minute of my day trying to find somebody that was awesome at working with buyers so I could give that up. Instead, what agents do is they spend 5 minutes every once in a while and they post an ad on Craigslist and they wonder why no talent comes in. I was missing an executive in my company once, and I sent over 1,000 LinkedIn messages and finally hired somebody that was living in Spain and got him and his wife to come to Bellingham, Washington. 1,000 LinkedIn messages because it was the #1 problem in my business and I had to solve it. 1,000. But I had to work during the day because I had to keep the business going. I had to pay bills. So at night, I did it. I did 108 hours that week to solve that problem because if I didn't solve that problem, it would have killed us. It would have killed the business. I just made that one problem my one thing. So where do you find these talent? Every relationship that you have should provide reciprocity. Every relationship, right? The lady that cuts my hair, she sends me 4 to 8 referrals every single year. She's bought 5 houses with me. If she referred somebody else, I would find somewhere else to get my hair cut. It doesn't look that good anyway. Right? My doctor lists his homes with me. The previous doctor, I sold his house. If they didn't work with me, I would find a new doctor. I do not have time to be in business or relationship with people that's not reciprocal. In return, I send her a lot of hair business. I send my doctor as many people as I can. I do as much as things as I can in return. Everybody is a source for talent and buyers and sellers. And then as we're bumbling around in the world, we get a great experience. We look and we say, would you ever be open to an opportunity? It's kind of an embarrassing story, but I get these hangnail things on my fingers, and I realized that getting a manicure would get rid of all the things that ended up causing it bleed. So I don't do it normally, but if I'm stuck at the airport for 3 hours and they have one of those things, I'll get a manicure, and then sometimes they buff it, and I look super fancy. But I met this individual, and she was always nice and great service, and I saw her over a year or two, and I said, you should get a real estate license. She's like, I don't know if I could afford it. So on the tip, I wrote a check for a tip for $350, and I said, realestateschool.org. I hope you chase this one, Ben. Right? 3 months later, I never gave her my number. 3 months later, she finds me on LinkedIn, sends me a message that says, I got my real estate license. I'd like to interview with you. Right? One of the newest members of our team was the guy at the gun shop in Bellingham, Washington, right? Because every time I came in there, he helped me put the things behind the desk. He remembered my number. He would text me if something good came in. I'm kind of a collector. And now he's working on our team, right? Bob and I worked years together back in a previous job. David and I worked together when he owned the Signs by Tomorrow office. Right? All these different people are potential talent, and they're standing right in front of you, but we don't take the time to build relationships and simply ask, would you ever be open to an opportunity, James? Right? If we could find a way where you would make more money, you'd be happier, you'd have a better life, and I would succeed too, would you ever be open to an opportunity? You'd be surprised at how many people would say yes.
One of the other things he's done a really good job of is tapping into the rest of us, right? So you guys all are surrounded by people, and we are all kind of tasked with going out and bringing other people into our organization. So, like my mother is probably one of the better hires we've brought in as an agent in the last couple of years, but she was just a talented person that was kind of, in her retirement years and wanted to do something, right? And I said, Mom, you should get your real estate license. So you guys, it's not just you, right? You should empower your own people to look in their networks and see who might be in their networks.
It's a good point, Bob. Here's one of the things, if I was hiring an admin, I would say, I'd do everything in the shape of a cheeseburger. So I'd take that cheeseburger and I'd cut it in half. And on the left side of the cheeseburger, I'd say, this is your salary, and this should get you paid to what you need. But I know you want to have a bigger business, and you want to get paid what you want, and you want to grow and double your income. Let's take this other side of the cheeseburger, and I'll tell you how you're going to earn that money. Part of it's going to be through profit share, through recruiting people to our company. Part of it's going to be through bonuses, through doing a good job, and part of it's going to be through me helping you make good financial decisions, investing in real estate, buying rentals, managing your retirement, so on. But not all of that's my responsibility. And I might add something in there about referrals as well, and if they want to get their real estate license, I'll pay for it. And then I set the standard. Here's what happens. If you come work for me and you're happy, I'll know it. Do you know how I'll know it? You'll be bringing in buyers and sellers. Do you know why? Because if you love where you work and you love who you work with, you're going to tell people about it. And eventually you tell enough people that you love where you work and what they do, somebody's going to say, aha, I would sell my house, or I would buy a house. And I know you're going to find people that want to come work for our company, because if you love working at our company, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to say, I love my job. They're so good to me. It changed my life. I'm buying investment properties. I've paid off all my debt. I get to go all this training. I do these things. I love my job. And pretty soon somebody's going to wake up and say, I don't. My job sucks. Do you think you could get me an interview? Right? So it's everybody's responsibility in your organization to help you recruit buyers, sellers, and leads. Talent. Leads for talent. That's what I was trying to spit out. Okay. So let's talk about standards. Standards are something that give us clarity. So in our recruiting presentation, it jumps right into this. So let's say we're going through a recruiting presentation and we want to talk to somebody. We talk about the 4 reasons that somebody should consider joining our real estate team. Number 1, they're going to have low to no expenses. And what I did for all my partners is I just gave them all the scripts, so they didn't even have to memorize it. They could just read it if they had to. Right, Brandon? Yep. And I just said most real estate agents spend 40 to 90% of their commission on expenses. That includes salaries, technology, marketing, lead generation, training, coaching, other systems to run their business. On the Ben Kinney team, the money you make is your gross income and your net income. Number 2, you're going to have more time. You're going to have more time because systems make the ordinary extraordinary. On our team, the combination of systems and the ability to leverage all of the team's resources means you have more time to spend doing what you get paid the most for.
We build all our systems in Brevity, by the way. You can check us out.
Thanks for the sales pitch, Bob. Like going on listing appointments and completing buyer consults, that's how we make money. You get to spend the remainder of your time with the people you love most. Number 3, you're going to do more business. You're going to do more business because of the systems, because of the scripts, because of the value prop, because of our presentation, and because of the leads. And number 4, you're going to have more opportunities. And opportunities are why you're not going to leave. So if you're thinking about a real recruiting presentation for your team, just write these 3 things down for you. Just please write this down. Just write down goals. Next, write down value. And then 3, write down opportunity. You cannot recruit somebody to your business if you do not understand their goals. And I mean business, professional, financial, health, relationships. What is it that's important to them? Why are they here? What do they want to accomplish? And then the value word you just wrote down is, what is your organization going to provide in value that'll help them accomplish those goals? And they'll join you when they see a connection between goals and your value. Does that make sense?
For a long time, knowing their personal goals, their financial goals, their health goals, I think we're probably at a time in our business by now that he's not tapped into everybody, right? We've grown to but there was a long time where I think Ben could have picked any of the people that we worked around and been able to tell us what was really important to us, what our goals were, and he intimately knew those things through he wanted to, right? He cared enough to want to know those things. And as an employee or somebody working for him or with him or as his partner, there's an extra level of just a commitment there that forms, right? It goes beyond the financial stuff and how much money kind of net at the end of the day. And I mean, it really forms some strong bonds. And I think all of our partners and most of our employees have that feeling. So that stuff, you kind of think, well, why does Ben care what my health goals are, right? Or why should he care what my personal goals are? But it just creates a really high level of a bond. It's a big bond.
And my job is to make sure anybody that reports to me, I understand those things. Bob's job is to make sure anybody that reports to him, he knows those things about their people, right? And that becomes scalable. Now the last word, remember it was goals, which connects to your value you're going to provide. They understand how through you they're going to accomplish their goals. And then opportunity is why they would never have to leave. So what is the opportunity for them if they stayed? Meaning, could they grow into different positions? Could they do something else with your companies? And so on. We break these out and we have the people actually write down their business goals, financial goals, personal health, relationships. We ask what they want to do now, where they're at today. I call that a reality check. We ask them what they want to do in the future, right? And then we give them kind of a 3 to 5 year plan. That allows me to understand, is this person realistic or not? Is this person realistic? Is what they want to accomplish something that could be accomplished through me? They might come and say, yeah, I need to net $500,000 my first year. I say, great, I wish you the best of luck. I don't know how that could happen. I know I could get you there, but it may not happen in a year. Are you flexible on the time frame at all? Right? If not, you should smuggle narcotics or something, because that's super fast, or Bitcoin, or you could buy some other junk stock. Okay. Who are the members that are on our real estate team? Right now, it's us running the organization. We have expansion partners that run each and every branch location. Our expansion partners, what's the second word in that name? Partners. They are an equal vote with me. They don't work for me. I don't work for them. And when somebody joins us, people often go and say, well, why'd you go to work for Ben? And they say, well, I didn't. I had an opportunity to partner with Ben, and Ben had an opportunity to partner with me, and we thought it was a win-win. And he has one vote, and I have one vote, and we share profit accordingly. Most of our locations have an operation manager, somebody that's in charge of running the administrative stuff of the world. And it might just be one operations manager, and then we add virtual assistants and other staff to it. We have buyers and listing teams in each one of our locations. Sometimes we just call those sales agents because they can do either one. Most of our locations do not have listing agents because the primary expansion partner is still the listing agent, or everybody does listings. And then as the business grows, you might move away from just having one admin to having a pending manager, because that's a way different task. and then a marketing or a listing manager. Those are kind of two different roles in our world. One person makes sure we get paid, manage the transactions, make sure all the documents are in place, right? Marketing is making sure listings are done on time, signs are ordered, marketing looks good, clients are communicated with, maybe even some client care aspects. And last in our organization, we'll have telemarketers. We'll have both inbound and outbound. For many years, we went away from having too many telemarketers because there wasn't that many people to telemarket. Canceled expireds went away. All of our agents were already calling 150 people a day, so we didn't need to circle prospect for other people. But now as the market changes, you'll see many teams get back into that because there's more and more people for these people to call. These are examples of some of the things that we use to explain in more detail. Low expenses, high net income. We talk about the things we pay for our people. We talk about how much marketing that we spend. We like to, and it doesn't matter if it's your numbers or my numbers, right? Because all of it can compound to make them feel different than the average agent. The average agent in America with 10 years experience did 8 sales. 8 sales, 10 years experience, NAR number, right? So if you're doing 30, you're doing 300% more than the average agent. So when you bring in a brand new agent, you go and say, Carl, I know you're brand new in real estate, but when you go out to your next listing presentation, you don't have to say that you're a brand new agent. You say, my partner, Ben and I, we sold 300% more than the average agent in this market. The average agent spent $860 on all marketing and promotion last year. Right? So if you spent $4,000 all year, you're now 400% more than the average agent. We spent more than 400% more than the average agent when it came to marketing and servicing our customers last year. And you go through and you compare and contrast to give yourself a value prop that enables that agent to get more business, to get more clients. And it doesn't matter if it's an expansion partner or a sales agent or a listing agent, you have everybody in your company explain that they're partners. When they walk out there, every agent says, my partner Ben and I, we sold 2,300 properties last year. We spent X amount in marketing and servicing. And they use that combined volume and that combined piece to give them more credibility in the market. Here's where we dive in and we show them more examples of leverage. This is what they get. We might show them our software, our transaction management for agents that may have more experience. This means a little more to them. Then we talk about the average agent. Because when you're recruiting somebody especially that hasn't been in real estate, or even your sellers, they don't know the difference between, if you said I sold 100 homes last year, they probably think everybody sells 100 homes, right? Or the agent that's researching real estate, they go and they say, well, maybe all agents do that, I don't know. But you got to use the numbers, and that's another reason to use the NAR profile buyers and sellers. You just say the average agent last year only sold 8 properties, and that was nationwide with 10 years experience. In our MLS, it was 3 or 10 or 12 or whatever your number was. Just take the total number of agents by the total number of transactions. And then you say the average agent on our team is going to do 24 to 75 transactions. Bob's mom, the first year on our team, did 79 transactions, right? Grandma Gail, first year. And then you got agents that do 24. But you set that standard. This is what we're going to have. Now, what do the agents do? So we decided, how are we going to pay them? How many are we going to have? What is that going to look like? You got to have a lead generation model. And if your lead generation model is to go buy internet leads from somebody and give them a platform and then drive away, that's not going to work. If that was that easy, right, all those software companies would just hire people to just go do that, and they would take the commission checks instead of giving it to us, right? We need to have a better business model. So I take this cheese, once again, cheeseburger.
Pizza.
Cheeseburgers.
It's a pizza this time.
Oh, it could be pizza. And it's cut in half. And it's cut in half because on the left is the agent's job, and on the right is my business. And I don't let agents into my business unless they're doing their job. And I know that they're doing their job because they have already gotten pendings or closings from the left side of the pizza. So what is their job? Brandon would tell you because he knows, because he kills it in Austin, is their job is to work their sphere, which means on day one, when you come in, you got to have 200 names in our spreadsheet that we use to upload right into our CRM, right, with at least one piece of contact info. And if you don't have that, and you show up on day one, and you don't have it, that's your last day. You get to go work somewhere else. Because if they don't understand your standards on day one, they won't respect them on day 2, month 3, or whatever. Also, if they don't put their database in the CRM, they can't work their sphere. Does that make sense? Has to happen day one. Number 2, they have to agree to do a minimum of 2 open houses per week. Bob's mom did 26 in 1 month. So it's the minimum. It's 15 pieces of flair. But they can have more flair if they want. Thank you for the one guy that understood the movie, the movie thing. Thank you. And number 3, they got a prospect. We do something called the 1,000 call challenge, where every agent has to make 1,000 dials in a single day. And if they get through all 1,000 dials, or they get through 998 and the day ends, they got to do it again. Brandon, did you make your 1,000 dials? How long did it take? All frickin' day, right? But if you get your agents to make 1,000 dials right when they start, hitting our daily standard of 150 is not a big deal. How long would it take you to make 150, Brandon? Yeah. Hour and 15 minutes. But when you don't do that, you go in there and you say, you got to call 100 people a day. They're like, whoa, I'm out. All of a sudden, making 30 is hard. But if you put the pressure on them up front to make 150 dials, to make 1,000 dials, anything else becomes easy. Now, any agent that works their sphere, uses our script, follows up and does our plan, that does open houses and uses our open house scripts and calls 150 people a day, you'd have to really, really suck to not get 1 or 2 deals pending. You'd have to be really horrible at your job. Because even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. And once they do that, we reward them with leads from our listings, internet leads, ISA appointments, our personal sphere, agent referrals, marketing. If they want to do farming or do classes, then we can pour into those people. The standards are very clear, and it's written and they sign it in the recruiting appointment on day 1. Again, and when we review it, we review the standards. First standard, activities, a commitment to consistently doing the activities that make our top agents so successful and following our agent business model, the lead gen model we just explained. Number 2, knowledge, a commitment to being the smartest person in the room, to know and masters our models, processes, and systems, meaning they have to memorize our listing presentation, they have to memorize our script, they have to memorize our buyer consult. Productivity, a commitment to generating listings and pendings in the first 30 days, closings in the first 60 days. Your commitment to the team, your loved ones, and yourself is to produce at the highest level possible. What you do is when somebody comes in, you don't say, hey, you're going to get your first paycheck, and I found ourselves doing this in the beginning. You need to have enough savings to be able to work without a paycheck for the next 90 to 180 days. So what happens was they didn't do anything for the next 90 to 180 days. No, we come in and we say, you need to have a pending on day 30. So what you're going to do in the beginning is whatever it takes to get a pending. Does that make sense? Number 4, participation. Leaders show up. This is why your commitment to participating in the activities, trainings, events, scripts, and contributing to the culture of the team is required. If you don't show up, you don't get to stay. What you're going to do, your next steps, now that we high five, we're going to agree to go work together. You're going to complete your goals thoroughly, and we'll have them send them back to us, and a sample 135. We created a template 135 that goes through buyers, sellers, and what they need to learn and do that first year that'll help them accomplish their goal. We give them a video where they watch it and they fill it out. And they show up on day 1 or they email it in earlier. Number 2, they have to memorize our mission, vision, and values. So we will actually have them record them reciting the mission, vision, values of our company and then get it sent to me. The reason is you don't want your mission, vision, and values to be the integrity sign at Enron. Does that make sense? Your mission, vision, and values is something that your company lives and breathes by, but only if you, the leader, stands up and you say it every time. Brandon, do we go through the mission, vision, and values at every training you've ever been to in your entire life with me? Yeah, we do. Consistently. It's hung on our walls, it's on our t-shirts. I'll pay for the tattoo if anybody wants it. It's something we constantly talk about. Number 3, you're going to review and sign the standards and team agreement. You're going to review and sign the standards and team agreement. This is our contract. Our contract answers everything. Somebody comes and say, hey, will you do this? And I'll say, I don't know. What's the contract say? I don't know. Okay, read the contract. Come back to me. Well, it says this. Well, that's what I'm going to do. That's what you agreed to. That's what I agreed to. High five. Well, what happens? I don't know. What's the contract say? The contract is 15 years of me understanding the kind of things that I forgot to put in the contract the first time. Number 4, the sphere spreadsheet. You got to have that filled out on day 1. You got to attend scripts and see how you work with the group, because we want them to show up and role play and see if they are a good match. That's before they join. And they got to shadow, make phone calls. Adelina will make people make their 1,000 calls before they even start. Just so they get and we see, are they willing to do the work? And then we're going to pick the start date. A lot of times what people do is they say, you need to go get your real estate license, and people leave, and then 3, 6, or 9 months later they get the real estate license. I don't do that. Somebody says, yeah, I need to get my real estate license. I say, great. Accountable and motivated people take 10 to 14 days to get their real estate license. Are you an accountable and motivated individual? Yes or no? Great. Then I expect you to get it done in the next 14 days. Can you block that time out at night and early in the morning to do that? When you don't do that, they take 30, 60, 90, 180 days. It just doesn't happen. So set the standard. Then what we do is we got to retain people. Retention is actually simple. If you do 1 to 2 deals per month on the Ben Kinney team, you get to stay. You get to stay. If you get to 3 to 4 deals per month, we'll help you hire a showing agent. That showing agent, that 15% of GCI will get paid out of the buyer's agent, 50%, leaving the buyer's agent with 35%. But we can increase the amount of leads and business we give that agent, because that agent now has 6 of their 8 hours back, because the showing agent is out showing. Does that make sense? And if they do it right and they keep busy, they move into the next category, which means if you're doing 6 deals a month on average, you can hire an admin, and I'll pay for half of it. Every month you do 6 transactions, I will pay half of that admin. You do 1 the next month, I'm not going to pay for it. You got to average that amount, and I'll pay for 1/2. That could be 1/2 of a VA, James. It could be 1/2 of a part-time. It could be 1/2 of a full-time. It's whatever risk you want to take and whatever you're willing to pay half of. I'll pay for the other half, because then we're really in business together. Now they got a showing agent, and now they got their own admin. They get to 8 deals a month, they can have another half piece of leverage that we pay for. Either another showing agent that we give them more leads, or they can hire a telemarketer, an ISA, or they can hire another admin. At that point right there, they might have 4 or 5 different people on their team. We call that a team within a team. When we created that model, people no longer needed to leave our business to go start their own business. Does that make sense? They could have a team without the frustrations, without all the model creation, without all the capital, and they could have a great life and they wouldn't have to leave. But the true goal is for them to get to 10 closings per month, because at that point they get their leverage back. They have extra time. They can hand that business over and keep it going. Tamara did 80 transactions in a year with the showing agent while running 2 teams that did over $2 million in GCI, because that team operates. And then they get the expansion opportunity. The expansion opportunity is for them to have the ability to be an equal partner with us, where they could go and they could open up a Ben Kinney team in the next city over, the next market center, the next area. If they want to move to Maui, they can move to Maui, and they can do that. Adelina decided to move from Oklahoma to Texas, and that's where she went, right? And we're seeing our different team members move around the U.S. because of a spouse or family or whatever, and they're just starting the new team there. And that leads into expansion, because once you have talent, if you provide a ceiling for them, they're going to leave. When you say there is no ceiling, you got to come up with a new opportunity. For some people, you could say, let's buy real estate together. like Julian and I own. Let's buy market centers together. Let's do training together. Let's do other things. Other people are going to have their own things they want to do. And lastly is the expansion model. And if you were to expand with us, this is how it works. Every single transaction gets paid on the same team splits we just explained. That all gets paid into a new LLC. That's what we call GCI. GCI, we subtract the expenses from that location and hub expenses. What's left over is what we call net income, right? The net income, we force all that net income to stay in the bank account until that bank account's greater than 4 months reserves. After that, me and that partner share equally 50% of the profit. 50% to them, 50% for me. So their income in the beginning is their own personal production because they get paid 50 of it, right, on their own deals. You see at the top left there, plus 50% of the profit. But our goal is to move our partners from being in production to living entirely off of profit, because in that situation, they get their time back, right, and they can work on growing and building the business. And that is as close to the time as we could get. Bob, you have any final?
I got a couple things. All the system and models that we use in his business can be found right back there at the Brevity booth. That's the third time I've gotten that in, I think. My work here is done. If you guys are all hopefully going to go out and build great businesses, he never promotes himself, but if you're interested in an expansion opportunity with Ben, you can text the word BKT expansion to 59559. And explore a potential expansion opportunity in our world. We're always looking to expand and find talented people to partner with.
Hope it was a useful hour and 15 minutes of your guys' time. Thank you, guys.
See you guys.